Hi you guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad. This is Firefighter's Financial Toolbox. You guys know on this channel I preach low cost. But what brokerage house has the lowest costs? Today we're going to talk about the lowest cost, what that means, and what you get for your money. So you guys know I'm a huge fan of Vanguard. I've been with Vanguard for over 10 years. My first IRA, my Roth, my wife's rollover IRAs, her Roth IRA, we have them all with Vanguard. I have a brokerage account with Vanguard. Now, Vanguard's whole idea is based on low-cost index funds. And now they've gone into low-cost ETFs, but are they the lowest cost? So we're going to compare three. We're going to compare Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. So what we're going to compare is three separate funds, both in the index fund version and the ETF version. S&P 500 index, because that's 70% of the American stock market, right? The 500 largest companies in America. We're going to do the total stock market index, which is about 3,600 companies in America, right? You got the large, you got the mid caps, you got some small caps. And then we're going to do a total international index. So between the three funds, you could pick two. You could have an S&P 500 international index, or you could do total stock market, total international, and have all you need for stocks for the world. So let's start with Vanguard. So we're going to start each time with the S&P 500 index, right? So for Vanguard, that's VFIAX. This is the index version of it, right? The index fund version. It costs 0.04% for an ER, right? That's 4 basis points, you guys. $4 on 10,000. What if we want to have the ETF version? That would be VOO. VOO is actually a little bit cheaper. It's 0.03% for the exact same fund as VFIAX, right? All right, let's talk about the total stock market. If you're a fire person, you know about this fund, right? VTSAX, VTSAX. If you're in the fire movement, this is the fund everybody uses. This is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. ER on that one, expense ratio, 0.04%. So again, 4 basis points, $4 on 10,000. If you want the ETF version of this, that's called VTI. It's the same exact fund, only an ETF version, and that costs you 0.03%. So 3 basis points, a little bit cheaper. All right. Now, why would you pick an index fund over a ETF? You guys, if you are with a company, if you're investing in Vanguard or Fidelity or Charles Schwab, it may be easier for you to dollar cost average into an index fund. Now, if I want to go with an ETF, unless I'm using fractional shares, which we're going to talk about in a bit, I have to have the full share price of the ETF. So for example, if the ETF costs $50 and I'm only dollar cost averaging $25 a week, I would have to wait 2 weeks to get a share. All right, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about international with Vanguard. That is VTIAX. That's the Vanguard Total International Stock Market Index Fund. ER on that is 0.11%. So you guys, you're paying $11 on 10,000. That's still cheap. Remember, international funds are a little bit more expensive than domestic funds because there's more involved, right? If I want to buy the ETF version of Vanguard, I buy VXUS. And believe it or not, the ETF version of that is only 0.08%. So 8 basis points. You actually save $3 on 10,000. Let's talk about Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is awesome. Charles Schwab has everything you need. They have branches you can go to. They have assistance on the phone. Very easy applications to use on their phone. They have a lot, you guys. So let's talk about their three offerings. First, we're going to talk about their S&P 500 index. That would be SWPPX. That has an ER of 0.04%. So the same price as the Vanguard fund, right? What if you want that in an ETF? The ETF version of that is SCHX. That's the basically, now it's not an actual S&P 500 index, you guys, but it's very, very similar. And that is a cost of 0.03% or 3 basis points, so very inexpensive. Now, what if you wanted to go with a total stock market index with Schwab? Then you would go with the SWTSX. That's the Schwab Total Stock Market Index. And that has an expense ratio of 0.04%. So again, very similar to the Vanguard version, yes? What if you wanted the Schwab International Index? That would be SWISX. Now, that has a expense ratio of 0.08%. So you guys, it's very, very inexpensive. Now, if you wanted to go with the ETF version of that, no problem. That would be SCHF. And that has a 0.06% for your expense ratio. Pretty similar in cost. Now, here's the thing. If it's 0.08%, 0.06%, you're talking $2 on 10,000. So not a big deal. When you compare it to the other companies that are charging you, 30 basis points for the same fund. All right, so let's talk about the cheapest one out there. If you're a Fidelity fan, you know this already, right? Now, we're not going to talk about the zero funds because they are new. Fidelity has all 3 of these funds in actually 0 ERs, 0.0% ERs. But we're going to talk about the funds that have been here for a while, and they're still very, very low cost. So if we're talking about the Fidelity 500 index, that is ticker FXAIX. You guys, we're talking about an expense ratio of 0.015%, $1.50 on 10,000. I don't know how you get cheaper than that. What if you want a total stock market index? Well, then we're talking about the Fidelity total stock market, which is FSKAX. And you guys, again, same ER, 0.015%. So again, $1.50 on 10,000. So cheap, it's almost unimaginable in this life. What if we want an international index? The Fidelity Total International Index is ticker FSISX, and that's the Fidelity International Index. That is an expense ratio of 0.035%. $3.50 per thousand, you guys. So if we're looking at exactly lowest cost index funds, Fidelity takes the cake. Boom. No question about it. They're the cheapest. But here's the thing. What if you want to invest in an ETF? And this is why I left Fidelity for last. Fidelity only has their own ETFs that are very, very structured for certain things. Now, Fidelity does offer free access to iShares ETFs. iShares is the ETF side of BlackRock. BlackRock is the biggest investment company on planet Earth. So in case you haven't heard of it, there's BlackRock Investments and then there's iShares, which is basically their ETF side, and it's huge. So if we're talking about a S&P 500 index, then we go with IVV. IVV is the iShares S&P 500 index. Cost of that one, 0.04%. So exactly same as Vanguard version. Now, what if we want a total stock market index? Well, then we go with ITOT, ITOT, which is the iShares Total Stock Market Index. The cost of ITOT, 0.03%. So pretty much the same as VTI, right? Now, what if you want the iShares version of the International Total International Index? This is IXUS. You guys, again, same price, 0.06%. So a little bit cheaper than the Vanguard version, not quite as cheap as the Fidelity version. All of these expenses are extremely cheap, which is best. I told you, you guys know I'm a Vanguard guy. So for me, I'm not going to change my funds to save $3 per 10,000 per year. If it was $30, I might, right? But they're very close together. Now, if we're talking about the cheapest index funds, Fidelity wins. If we're talking about ETFs, they're all pretty close, you guys. Which is your pick? If you're with that company, if you're with Charles Schwab, you're with Fidelity, you're with Vanguard, they're close enough that it really doesn't make a difference. I wouldn't leave one company to save a couple of dollars. If you have a big enough portfolio, maybe it makes a difference. So I'll leave you with that. All right, you guys, I hope you got something out of this. If you did, do me a favor. Hit the like button, turn it blue for me. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. You'll get notified every time I make a video. I try to make at least a couple a week. All right, we'll see you again. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.